Greetings to you once again. If you are returning, welcome back. If this is the first time, we're glad you've joined us for the session on mindfulness. Today is Thursday, August the 20th. It's a beautiful, sort of on the edge of fall day, but it's kind of nice to have that slightly cooler weather. And we are here to run the mindfulness session similarly to what we've done before. We'll open with a guided meditation. We'll then have a conversation on a topic, an issue, and we'll close with another guided meditation. I'm Miss Shepherd, and I'm here with my friend, Mr. Keogh, and I'll let him say hello.
And hello from Mr. Keogh. Here we are. Welcome people who have tuned in before and who have been in the session with Miss Shepherd when we were there face-to-face. And welcome also if you're tuning in for the first time, if you just happen to notice this and you're curious about what this is. We're very much believe that this is the kind of thing that a person can just kind of come into cold without any background and get right into it. And the first thing we'll do is we're going to do a practice meditation. And don't let the word scare you. Meditation is simply relaxing and letting your mind focus on what you're up to right now. Now, the key thing is that it's what you are up to right now. It's not having your mind wander into some other time, reflecting on the past or thinking about what's going to happen in the future, because those are all, the future brings in anxieties, and the past, who knows, it could be bringing in regrets. But right now, just pay attention to what it is like to be sitting there. So sitting, perhaps you're standing, perhaps you're laying back. Wherever you are, just bring your attention to the screen. And then, if you're comfortable, let your eyes close so that you're not looking at the screen anymore. And you're just paying attention to what it feels like to be in your position. And I always begin with a bell. So I'm going to ring a bell one time. And the bell is a reminder to pay attention. In that case, it's to pay attention to what you're hearing. But now, either watching the screen or with your eyes closed, take a couple deep breaths and notice what it feels like to be breathing. Just pay attention. It affects nearly your entire body. Take a nice deep breath and hold it for a couple beats and then let it out slowly. And then do that 2 more times. Notice cool air coming in your nose. Then let your breath settle into whatever its natural rhythm is. But still pay attention to the way it feels. You might notice your chest moving up and down, or your belly going in and out. Let yourself relax and notice your physical sensations right now. Gravity's working on us all the time. Notice how maybe you're being pushed onto your chair. If your feet are on the floor, your feet are actually being, even when you're sitting, your feet are being held on the floor by gravity. What do your feet feel like? Wiggle your toes a little bit and notice what they feel like. So I invite you to get into this and follow along and do it. Not just treat this as some kind of movie, but get into it. This is a practice that has great benefits if we do it over time. And this is just a little sample, little experiment. It won't last long. your mind, wherever your thoughts have been the last few seconds, bring them back to the feelings in your body again. Just kind of scan through your body. Are there places where you're feeling pain? Just notice the pain, acknowledge it, and then move on and notice the rest of your body. And as you get relaxed, you might get more peaceful, and you might notice some things that are pretty subtle, some aspects of your body that aren't very noticeable, but you can start noticing them. Like your shoulders. Are you holding your shoulders kind of tense? You can let them relax. You can let the shoulders slump. It's helpful to keep your back straight because we don't want to be falling asleep here. This is not about zoning out and relaxing so much that we fall asleep, but it is being aware of what's happening right now and not being bothered by thoughts of the future or the past. It's just appreciating what's happening right now, being able to sit here, being able to be relaxed and restful. What else do you notice about your body? What about the jaw? Is your jaw clenched? Let your jaw relax. Let it release. Let it hang. We hold tension in our jaws often. Right now, you don't need to be tense. If there are sounds in the background, if you're noticing distracting, disturbing things around you, just let them happen. They're out there. Let it just kind of come and go. But try to stick with what's inside and within your skin. Your shoulders relaxed, your jaw relaxed, your breathing, whatever is natural. If your breathing is free and easy, you're not congested, you don't have a cold or anything, then use your breath as what you can come back to when you find that you've been distracted for a long time. Come back to the feeling of breathing. Because there's always movement. We might think that we're sitting still, but we're always moving. We're always alive. And we should be grateful and joyful that we're here. Inside us is peace. Outside us is all these disturbances and whatever, but inside is our peaceful place. And we can remind ourselves of that fact by coming back to our breath. So reliable. We can rely on our bodies to breathe whenever, all the time. We don't have to be thinking about it. But when we pay attention to the breath, it reminds us of how solid and stable we are deep inside. So we always get distracted. Our minds always are going out. It's impossible unless we're extremely well practiced, unless we're extremely experienced. It's impossible just to stay with the breath forever, for a long time. But what we can do, we can try to stay with the breath every time we inhale. Remind ourselves, I'm inhaling now. Breathing in. And we can just say that to ourselves and remind ourselves on every in-breath, come back to the breath. I'm coming back to the breath every time. If I breathe 30 times a minute, I'm coming back to myself 30 times a minute. When we get distracted and our thoughts carry us away, that's very natural. So no need to be upset with it. No need to try too hard to stop it from happening. But when we notice that we've been carried away for a long time, come back to that breath again. Come back to each in-breath. This is much more about keeping in mind this is what we want to do, not so much on what we're successful at doing, but just what do we want to do, and reminding ourselves, oh, peacefulness is within. Breath is my anchor. If you're getting kind of impatient, that's another thing to notice. Oh, what does impatience feel like? And just watch yourself as you're sitting, breathing, maybe being a little bit impatient. Notice what it feels like to be impatient and just be with it. This won't take very much longer, but it's a good experience to just pay attention to yourself. If your body's resisting, your body doesn't want to be relaxed, that's okay. That's the way it is right now. It's not the way it'll be every time you meditate, but right now it is. So can you just be with it? Or maybe your body's getting very relaxed and you find that you're dropping off, kind of starting to nod, you're fighting going to sleep. Well, this is one of those things where maybe you open your eyes, move your head around a little bit, because our purpose is more than simply relaxing. Our purpose is actually practicing being mindful, and we'll describe that later. We'll explain that later. Come back to the in-breath every time. Inhale. Okay, we're going to wrap this up in 30 seconds and I'll ring the bell then. But for this last 30 seconds, these last few breaths, notice that cool air coming in the nose. Notice your breathing.
Thank you, Mr. Keogh, for that. So I always like to talk about what's kind of alive for me. Hopefully that makes it more alive for you as well. And what's been on my mind, or what's occurred to me lately, is kind of our role in the world, how we are in the world, and what we can do or what we can't do, and the difference really we make. And I've been thinking about this in a number of ways, but I think it was kind of brought to some clarity last night when I was watching the Democratic National Convention. Perhaps you were as well. And one of the things that our prior president said was that what we do echoes through generations. And that really struck me. And what struck me is how true it is, how accurate it is, not only through generations, but through our life and through the lives of other people. And I think that the way we can become more intentional and more aware of that is through this practice of mindfulness. So if we decide we do want to make a difference in this world, that we do care about how our life echoes, either through the next 10 minutes or through generations, in order to know that, we have to develop this skill of mindfulness, this skill of actually being aware of what we are doing in any moment, so that we can then have some say over what we're doing in any moment. This is, we've talked about this a lot in terms of impulsivity. This is the opposite of impulsivity. This is living life with intention. And so when you watch a huge event like that, you can see these famous people that have made a huge difference in the world, that are members of our national, they are our national leaders. But also there were lots of just regular folks that were highlighted, which was very moving to me. And I think that highlights how just regular folks, you and me, anywhere we are, whether we are incarcerated or we are not going out at all because we're elderly and in quarantine, or whether we are healthcare workers and going out every day, or working in a supermarket and going out every day to stock the grocery stores, or working in the post office, that all of us, we make a difference, that what we do echoes through the generations. And this matters. And that's the end of my thought. This matters. that's my point. But what mindfulness lets us do is notice how it's not, signing congressional bills necessarily is the only way that it makes it matter. That it matters in tiny little moment-to-moment interactions with ourselves that support our own heart, or interactions with our cellie, interactions with the CO, and realizing that bringing awareness to our own actions, bringing intention to our own actions, makes a huge difference. We've all heard story that, I can't remember what it is exactly, but some joke about somebody gets yelled at work, and then he comes home and he yells at his wife, and then his wife yells at the kid, and then the kid goes and kicks the dog. That's what we're talking about, that when we have an intentional interaction with our cellie or with the CO or with anybody, your social worker or the psychologist you're working with, anybody, on the phone with your families, email with your families, that what we put out in the world then gets received, and somebody else picks it up and acts too. And that we'll never know, but it might be that smile, or that how are you doing, that kindness that you offered to someone else, prevented them from then doing something they would have, that maybe they're not as mindful, that they're not as intentional as you are, but that the kindness you offered enabled them to not act impulsively and maybe spark somebody else, who then maybe sparked somebody else, who then maybe did something really terrible. That it doesn't take much, but that it really is a whisper down the lane kind of situation where we never know the impact of what we've done. And it's not to say that, you know, we're responsible for that person for whispers down, but that to recognize we actually maybe can be of help to that person for whispers down if we haven't started the fire up at our end. You know, there's all these fires in California now. It's horrifying. The whole state is virtually on fire, 350 fires. And the thing about fires is that they start other little fires. And so our mindfulness is what lets us put out our fires so that we're not sending off sparks that then light somebody else down the road. And that through doing that, we really do make a difference. We really echo through the generations. That we don't have to be president of the United States or vice president of the United States or a member of Congress or, you know, anybody like that. That each of us, no matter where we are, doesn't matter if one is incarcerated or, you know, in a hospital, it really doesn't matter. What matters is that what we do makes a difference because it makes a difference to the other people we interact with. And we build together, we build the community. And so a community that is based on harmony and interest and care is very different than a community where everybody is just out for themselves and has no recognition of their impact on other people. And sometimes we don't know our impact on other people. And so this is not a guilt thing. This is not to put some heavy weight on us. You know, we all make mistakes. That's not what it's about either. But realizing when we can practice in this way, when we can use our meditation to develop our mindfulness, the chances of actually being a positive impact on ourselves and on other people are so increased. So there's one other thing I want to talk about, but first let me ask Mr. Keogh about how does he think about the way that mindfulness actually helps you live a better life?
It's very interesting. Since I've been practicing, well, the last few years, I've been paying more attention to the way that my attitude to other people affects them. So if I kind of am more pleasant and open and I say hello to somebody that I'm passing on the sidewalk, it's pretty interesting. Most of the time that'll provoke a friendly reaction. And I kind of like that. I kind of like to do that. So not to be stupid about it, you know, if I don't want to come across as some kind of stalker or something like that, you know, but if I just kind of flash a smile, it'll a lot of times provoke a smile on their part. And so I'm kind of aware of the way that I influence the people around me. And I've kind of come to the basic understanding that a person can either be a drag on the people around them or something that's kind of a little bit of a boost. And that's just the way it is. You know, like there's something, they call it goodwill, where you just kind of genuinely, not in a fake way, but genuinely, you're kind of like trying to be kind of a positive thing, you know, not without any great expectation, but just kind of generally, that's a decision to make. That's an intellectual decision. You know, do I want to be a source of aggravation or a source of something pleasant to the people around me? That's a decision to make. But then once you make the decision, then how do you remember to do it? And that's kind of where mindfulness comes in, where when I'm walking down the sidewalk, I am kind of paying attention, a little bit more attention to, oh, I do, I'm not just a rock, You know, I'm a person, people react to other people. You know, it's a very strong thing. People, the way people notice the people around them, and you guys, I'm sure, you know, you're so close to, you're uncomfortably close to a lot of people all the time, probably. And I know that you experienced people that are a drag, and you probably know people that are kind of more uplifting. And so the decision is, where do you want to be in that? You know, and that's a decision. But then once you decide to do it, following through and being able to do it, that takes practice. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, that's a great lead into the last thing I was going to share, which is that in these instructions about mindfulness, the way they were originally given many thousands of years ago, they actually talked about a kind of found some sense of precursor of what happens before mindfulness, which speaks to what Mr. Keogh was just asking. And the word that's usually used in English to translate that is heedfulness. You can think of that as carefulness or paying attention. That it means that we are we're heedful, we're careful, we're watchful of what's happening, because we know the mind can shift so quickly, right? Somebody says something and man, we're off on some impulsive reaction. And so the way that we can intercept that impulsivity is by this practice of being careful, being heedful, being watchful. So my best example of this heedfulness, it was so clear to me. I had the amazing good fortune to go to Thailand. And when I was in Thailand, some people took me to a place where people meditate in a very solitary way. And that there is a cave at the top of this mountain where people go to meditate. And so we all went up. I was with about, at that day, I think there were about 9 of us. And so we went to this location. We had to take a river trip, which was gorgeous. And then we went to this location, and then we had to climb to get to this cave. And I was working full time at the time. I had not been exercising much at all. And I knew that I was going to have to be really, really careful, because, you know, it's not like there was a escalator to the top of this mountain. It was a 2-hour trek. And, you know, it was just on all these kind of odd rock formations that you just had to kind of climb. It wasn't hugely steep, but we were climbing, and there were just all these odd shaped rocks. And so I remember the whole way I was totally focused on just this step, just next step. Where's my foot? Is it solid? Is it steady? Is it safe? Because I knew that if I fell and got hurt, 1, there was no way to get me out. And 2, it would be a, you know, terrible this sort of problem for everybody else. So I knew I did not want to fall. So we got up to the top and saw the cave, and it was at the top of this mountain, this incredible vista. It was amazing. And then we had to come down, and, you know, sometimes coming down is harder than going up. So we came down, 2 hours down, and then I saw, you know, we were maybe, I don't know, 10 feet away, 15 feet away from the camp. I saw the camp where we had been up ahead. And sure enough, I just about tripped because my heedfulness let down. I thought, oh, I'm home. I'm back. It's safe. I didn't trip, but I was close. I almost did, even though here it was actually pretty flat. There weren't really many rocks, but my heedfulness was gone. And when that heedfulness was gone, my mindfulness was gone. My attention was gone. I wasn't being careful. And so what supports our mindfulness is our heedfulness, is our intention and effort and attention towards what's happening now. Where is the mind? Is the mind, in a way, is the mind leaning into what's actually present? Is it making up stories about a future? Is it making up regrets or memories of a past? How do I keep it right here? And how do I keep it right here in a way that is beneficial. Not a way that's spinning out and causing suffering, but a way that is just restful, at ease, calm. So that's what our mindfulness does for us. It protects us from falling down mountains. And sometimes falling down the mountain is yelling at your partner or yelling at your cellie or saying something that your child might misinterpret and be hurt by. And we don't want to do that. None of us want to fall down that mountain. So the way we don't do that is by this practice of care and mindfulness. And it takes practice, and we all make mistakes. It's not about being perfect, but it's about recognizing that the more attention I put towards it, the more regularly I practice it, the more likely it is I will remember. And that's why our formal practice is so important, that the formal daily practice is what supports and strengthens our ability to be awake and aware throughout the day. And it just doesn't grow if we're not practicing every day. And I think practicing really formally, that practicing out in the world is great. It's totally necessary, totally useful. But there is something about the extended, persistent, just sitting quietly, being able to stay through the waves of stuff that come through the mind that are unpleasant or difficult, the waves of impatience, the waves of irritation, the waves of memory, the waves of excitement, any of those waves, just seeing them, this is a wave. How do I stay present? How do I stay on this rock? It's like walking, when I was walking up, if there was a big wind, I still had to make sure my foot was steady. I had to be more careful, more intentional in making foot was steady, because maybe my body was a little knocked by the wind. So these emotions and thoughts and memories that come through the mind are just like winds. They're just like weather. And we all know weather happens. Some days it's beautiful, some days it's hot, some days it's cold. We just are present and know we can persist, that we can stay through it, and that in doing that, we make a difference. We are of help to the whole world, that our practice echoes through the generations. Because to me, it absolutely is the truth. Any other thoughts, Mr. Keogh, before we have a meditation again?
No, I just want to hammer on that, what you had said recently when you're talking about formal practice. What you're talking about is sitting and meditating, just like we did a few minutes ago, where we just repeatedly come back to the breath. And you guys see the connection between coming back to the breath when we're practicing meditation and coming back to paying attention to what I'm thinking and doing. It's a case of coming back to what's happening right now, rather than being lost in whatever you say, zoned out in automatic mode. And so that practicing while we're meditating of coming back to the breath again and again, and we'll do it again, because it takes, you can't just talk about it, you got to be actually doing it. It's like shooting free throws. You can talk about it all you want, but you got to get out there and shoot hundreds of them before you're much good at it. In the same way, it develops a certain pattern that's in your mind, not in your shooting ability, but your mind, a pattern that you do come back to paying attention to what you're doing. So Jan?
Okay, so let's do one more meditation. I'll put up the image so you have something lovely if you want to look at it. So if you prefer to leave your eyes open, you can just leave them loosely focused on the image of the lovely water. Otherwise, gently close your eyes and just come into the body. check in with what's happening right now. Not with an intention to fix it, but with an intention to know it. Knowing what's happening is not the same as controlling what's happening. Sometimes we think, oh, well, I do this practice because if I know that the mind is spinning out, then I can control it. This isn't a practice of control. It's a practice of opening, allowing, settling. Really offering kindness and compassion to whatever is actually present in the body, especially, and in the mind right now. So sometimes people talk about beginning by using sound as the practice. Noticing any sounds that are arising and see if you're able to do that without adding on the layer of interpretation. That it's a good sound or a bad sound or a sound you don't like. Or what does that sound mean? Or whose voice is that? Instead, experience it just as vibration, whether it's loud or soft, whether it's changing. Really trying to remove that whole layer of interpretation and just being present with the experience of hearing sound. If sound is difficult, then move to the breath. Just noticing that this body is breathing. Being present as you breathe in and as you breathe out. So simple, not so easy. But remembering it actually is intended to be quite simple. Noticing any way in which you're complicating it, making it harder than it needs to be. See if you can let go of those complications and just let the attention rest on knowing the breath as it comes in, knowing this breath as it exhaled. Knowing breathing in, knowing breathing out. Maybe knowing if the breath is long or short. Knowing whether it's smooth or choppy. Knowing whether it's changing. Is the in-breath different than the out-breath? Are they the same length or different lengths? Really becoming curious, interested in this phenomenon of breathing. And as you become more connected to this breath, as you breathe in and breathe out, expanding awareness to take in the whole body. Is the body at ease? Or is it tense in some way? If the shoulders are cramped up, letting them release. Maybe the hands are gripping a little bit. Relax. And seeing the impact of how the breath also becomes more easeful as the body becomes more easeful. Aiming at letting the breath be soft, open, not demanding in any way. Noticing if you've added some requirements about what you're supposed to be doing or what you need to be doing. And releasing as many of those as you can to just be with each breath. As you breathe in, as you breathe out. It's kind of funny how so little is actually being asked of us, and yet we can make it so hard on ourselves. We're learning how to release some of those ways we make it hard on ourselves. And just be willing to be here with this breath. Just right now. If words are helpful, you can maybe add a gentle letting go. On each exhale. We're breathing in, breathing out. Sometimes having a little whisper like that in the mind gives the mind a little bit more to hook onto so that it's not quite so likely to start spinning out and going away, losing track of what's actually happening. But if the words aren't helpful, then no need to use them. What we're aiming at is just staying with this experience, this simple experience. Knowing the experience of breathing in and breathing out. Learning about what gets in the way of that experience. What is it that carries us away? Is it thoughts of what we're going to do next? Is it memories of what something happened this morning? It can be very helpful to start to notice what are the patterns in this mind that get in the way of being present. Am I usually running into a future, an imagined future? Am I very stuck in memories of past? If we start to recognize those patterns, it can be helpful because then when they arise, it can be easier to let them go. We can go, oh, I know you. Oh, this is just that planning mind. I don't need that right now. Just letting yourself rest in this very moment with alertness, with attention, but with openness and kindness and gentleness. So we're really glad that you've joined us for this session, wherever you may be, whether you are watching it on the internet or you are with a group of people. We hope that you are using your mindfulness practice because it can absolutely be a resource for you now and anytime, when you are incarcerated or when you are not incarcerated. And that we hope that practicing in this way, developing this skill of being present, being careful, being heedful, will keep you from falling down mountains and will help you help others and really have what you do echo through the generations in a positive, helpful, beautiful way. So thank you for joining us today. Mr. Keogh, would you like to say goodbye?
Yes, I hope you continue to hang in there. If you're listening, that you work on these practices not as work, but as something that's good for yourself. That's a treat for yourself. And if things get too stressful, hang in there. Remind yourself you've been able to handle everything so far, and you can handle it. But above all, hang in there and be well. Be as well as you can be.
Absolutely. Be well and know that you truly are a gift to the world. And we need you, every single one of you. So take care. We hope to see you in just a couple weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.